Herzlich willkommen zurück. Ich grüße Sie alle ganz herzlich. Es war spannend, das erste Panel, und ich hoffe, dass wir diese Spannung beibehalten können und bis morgen Abend die interessanten Diskussionen fortführen können. Ich möchte das zweite Panel einleiten, und zwar zur exegetischen Überlieferung, Kritik und Anwendung. Dafür haben wir zwei sehr wertvolle Referenten gewinnen können. Zum einen Herrn Professor Dr. Mehmet Akif KOÇ und zum anderen Herrn Professor Dr. Yaşar Sarıkaya. Herr Professor Akif KOÇ wird seinen Vortrag auf Englisch halten, aber er hat es mir erlaubt, weil er Deutsch rezipiert, seine Vorstellung auf Deutsch vorzunehmen. Herr Akif KOÇ ist Professor für Koranexegese an der Universität Ankara, an der Theologischen Fakultät. Er hat seine Doktorarbeit er ist promoviert ebenfalls in Ankara, und zwar ist seine Doktorarbeit zur frühen Koranexegese, über die er geschrieben hat mit Rücksicht auf die Überlieferungsketten, die wir in dem Tafsīr von Ibn Abi Hatim wiederfinden können. Der originale Titel seiner Doktorarbeit, die in Ankara erschienen ist im Jahre 2003, lautet İsnāds verileri çerçevesinde erken dönem tefsir faaliyetleri, İbn Abi Hatim tefsiri örneğinde bir literatür incelemesi. Herr KOÇ hat jahrelang an der frühen Koranexegese gearbeitet, mehrere Arbeiten in diesem Bereich auch verfasst. Einen englischen Artikel werden wir im Chat Ihnen allen mitgeben, und zwar Isnāds and Rijal Expertise in the Exegesis of Ibn Abi Hatim, das im Jahre 2005 erschienen ist. Dieser Artikel ist im Jahre 2005 erschienen, der Islam. Das wird, glaube ich, im Chat gleich folgen, die Datei dazu. Und Herr Akif KOÇ ist auch Teil des Linked Open Tafsīr Projektes als assoziiertes Mitglied und unterstützt uns dabei, die Überlieferung bei al-Ṭabarī zu analysieren. Herzlich willkommen, Herr Professor KOÇ. Herr Professor Yaşar Sarıkaya gehört auch zur Linked Open Tafsīr Gruppe. Er ist einer der Projektleiter und hat die Professur für Islamische Theologie und ihre Didaktik an der Justus-Liebig-Universität Gießen inne. Herr Sarıkaya ist promoviert an der Ruhr-Universität Bochum und habilitiert im Fach Religionspädagogik in Istanbul. Er war auch einige Jahre lang als Lehrer tätig, und zwar in Duisburg und Paderborn, sodass er nicht nur die theoretische Perspektive auf die Religionspädagogik hat, sondern auch aus der Praxis herkommt und entsprechend sich auch mit der praktischen Umsetzung religionspädagogischer Modelle befasst hat. Zu seiner neuesten Publikation gehört dieses wunderbare Buch, die Einführung in Hadith und Hadith-Didaktik, ganz neu erschienen im UTW-Verlag. Die Titel der Vorträge möchte ich jetzt kurz ankündigen und dann auch das Wort den Referenten übergeben. Und zwar wird Herr KOÇ über das folgende Thema sprechen: on the subtleties of the Isnāds in al-Ṭabarī's Tafsīr. Professor KOÇ, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. We missed this type of activities for the COVID-19. Firstly, I would like to thank to the relevant faculties and their teams. They gave me this opportunity. I am before in front of the distinguished scholars like you and distinguished colleagues. My topic is related to the Isnād of Ṭabarī on the subtleties of the Isnāds in al-Ṭabarī's Tafsīr. And my purpose of the presentation not focusing on Isnād itself, but looking at problematic paradigms via Isnād. Isnād is very valuable in Islamic sciences, especially for first 3 centuries of Islam. Very attractive and very beneficial. Many things we can understand under the light of Isnād data. Firstly, tomography of the references in Ṭabarī's Tafsīr, Heribert Hor's doctoral thesis. This thesis was prepared in 1951 That is, I think nobody could exceed this very valuable thesis up till now. I am naming it tomography because I have a very special experience I had 20 years ago. When I was preparing doctoral thesis, I collected all data, but I couldn't find a way in which I can evaluate this data. After taking this doctoral thesis, it is very interesting, 73 pages. All problems were solved. So from at that time, I am naming tomography of the Isnāds in Ṭabarī's Tafsīr. Yeah, that is the horse finding data. Totally 38,000 reports and repeating more than 100 times 21 isnad. It is interesting, there is no companion reaching to any companions from the friends of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and reaching to the companion except Ibn Abbas. And totally, that is so important, 80% coming from Tabi'un generation, 16 generation from Sahaba, and 4 from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. This means that Tafsir, according to this data, started with the hand of Tabi'un scholars. Yes, the number of the Shaykh, nearly 300, and about 3,000 women names are mentioned in the commentary of Ṭabarī. As you know, Ṭabarī is the largest work covering all 3 centuries of Islam in terms of understanding of the Quran. Very valuable. After that, everybody reading in Tafsir benefited from Ṭabarī. There is no exception, as far as I know. Yes, also I want to mention Claude Giglio. I invited to our faculty. He is expert on Ṭabarī's Tafsir. He consumed his life to investigate Ṭabarī's Asanid and Ṭabarī's topics. Yes, by the way, by this opportunity, I want to mention his name. That is all Tafsir narrations. As well as I know, the largest one, Mawsu'at Tafsir al-Ma'thur, edited by Musa'id Tayyar, that is the largest encyclopedia covering all Tafsir reports. The number 64 and 384. That is the scheme table. As you know, the data coming from Ṭabarī is compatible with all Tafsir reports. And according to this encyclopedia, Tafsir started with Tabi'in, successors, and after successors. It is interesting, many people evaluating, talking about the Tafsir reports are saying the Sahaba generation, Tabi'un generation, and Prophet Muhammad. But it is interesting, only Ibn Abbas inside Sahaba generation, the percentage of 13.5. This means that at the one hand, Ibn Abbas, the other hand, more than 100 Sahaba. This means that Ibn Abbas played a huge role, more than all companions. So I differentiated Ibn Abbas from Sahaba generation. Yes, What do the Isnāds of al-Ṭabarī's Tafsīr say about the following problematic paradigms to Tafsīr academics? That is the first question. Everybody knows, relating to the Islamic culture, Islamic science, Ahmed bin Hanbal, three things are not reliable: Tafsīr, Maghazi, and Malahim. But what is the meaning? Because his Musnad, his book, full of tafsir narrations. If you try to understand, can we assume that by falling into such a simple contradiction, he could risk his existing dignity in society? No, I don't think so. What is the meaning of his statement? Ahmed bin Hanbal means some human errors, such as inqita, tadlis, and ta'liq. Many contemporary writers of tafsir history share this opinion, but that is a problematic. Why? Because if we focus on Tabari's tafsir, asanid, isnad circles, isnad chains are not bigger than the other hadith narrations. I think Ahmed bin Hanbal made such an evaluation because he saw that most of tafsir narrations were the sayings tabi'un and tabi'ut tabi'in. Ahmed bin Hanbal's statement can be a descriptive rather than a critical assessment. That is the reality. According to the Ahlul Hadith and Ahmed bin Hanbal, one narration must reach to the Prophet Muhammad, but most of the tafsir narrations, no, reaching to the tabi'in. This means that from the perspective of binding, this huge amount of tafsir is problematic. That is Ahmed bin Hanbal's, I think, approach. Karradevuk's approach. Karradevuk, the writer of tafsir article in the first edition of the Encyclopedia of Islam, he said, at the beginning, tafsir was part of hadith. After Karradevuk's, in Arab world, probably every writers in Turkey also, in the West also, repeated this statement. Is it true? I think Karradevuk saw inside hadith collection, Kitab al-Tafsir, like Kitab al-Salah, Kitab al-Iman, Kitab al-Wafayat, like this. But he ignored most of the tafsir narrations are not consisting from the marfu or mafkuf hadith. Maqtu, this means that all of these, most of tafsir narrations out of hadith collection. I don't think so. At the beginning, tafsir was part of hadith. The other problematic issue, leading figures. For example, in our culture, I think periodic arrangement based on chronology and the general virtue ranking have preceded the data-based activity ranking. For Khalifa, Alqama, Masruq, Qatada, very simple example. What is that? Among 64,000 reports, Alqama, only 29 narrations reached to the Alqama. Only 59 narrations reached to Masruq Ajda'. 5,000 narrations going to Qatada ibn Di'ama, but Alqama and Masruq and 4 Khalifa are presented before Qatada in the books. Why? Because in our culture, virtue ranking confused with the reality, with the data-based conclusions. Qatada is very special among successors area. What do the Isnāds say about the Rihlas? I don't want to kill my time. That is the first Isnād chain in Horst doctoral thesis. That is the 11th one. If we compare these two, it is very interesting. Both isnad clearly complete each other. Isnads can allow rihla marruts. Yes, I assume, and I will explain, is assume something like this. For example, I am sitting in Frankfurt. I try to write a tafsir. I am looking forward. I am investigating the around. I heard in Hamburg one sheikh started to teach Qatada tafsir. And of course, they reached to the Surah Al-A'raf, chapter Al-A'raf. I hurried up to the Hamburg. I started with Surah Al-A'raf. And I stayed there 6 months, for example. Sheikh reached to the Surah Al-Kahf. After that, I heard one other sheikh, aged scholar, started the Qatada tafsir in Berlin, for example. I left Hamburg, I am going to Berlin. And if I come to the Berlin, they started with Surah Ali Imran, and I am staying there until A'raf, because I collected after A'raf from Hamburg. After that, I am returning to the Frankfurt, and I am observing around. This means that all rihlas were organized with meetings, not randomly, not arbitrarily. Many scholars, many people supposed scholars made randomly and arbitrarily journey, scientific journey. Isnad is opposite this type of binding approach. That is, does the fact that books written in the early period didn't survive mean that the tafsir reports have not reached the present? According to the biographical sources, for example, Ibn Nadim, Kashf al-Dhunun, Haji Khalifa, and Sezgin Qas. In 3 centuries of Islam, many books were lost, didn't survive now. This means that all of the knowledge, all of the narrations, many of the narrations were lost? No. There is a difference between the losing of the sources from the losing of the information. How? I am imagining now as it used to be now. For example, for the last 14 years, I have taught in my faculty to the MA and PhD students. 14 years. In every year, 10 students are graduating from our faculty. After graduating, they are spreading all Turkey, for example. This means that during the 14 years, total number 140. Imagine, please, after 3 centuries, 5 of these students only, 5 notebooks of these students survived. The other 135 lost. But this doesn't mean my teaching, my learning, my writing, my books didn't survive, because I am teaching the same thing in every year, in general escalation. Yes, I am changing, I am verifying, I am falsifying, but in reality, in general, I am teaching the same book. All students are writing from me the same book. This means that 5 is enough. This means that losing of the sources of works are very different from the losing of knowledge. I know, I believe, nearly we had all narrations in Tafsīr. That is Israeliyat. It is very interesting. The most comfortable time to use this type of knowledge, Israeliyat, was the earliest period. The most problematic is the present. Why? In Sahaba generation, in Tabi'in generation, for example, they were very free. The cousin of the Prophet Muhammad, we know, Ibn Abbas asked some question to the non-Muslim Jewish people to understand some verses. But from the 1850 until now, for the last 1.5 centuries, many tafsir tendencies are agree with opposition to the Israeliyat. What is the meaning? These tendencies normally they not agree with on something, but except Israeliyat. I am thinking, why is the reason? Why? I think in modern times, Muslims and Mufassirs, of course, including Mufassirun, saw and felt as Muslim world, as Muslims, we are dependent the best in all aspects of the life, from technology, from electricity, from plane, from car, from everything. Why the modern scholars are opposite to the Israeliyat knowledge? Because using Israeliyat means that we are dependent to the West even to understand our Holy Quran, Holy Book, because Israeliyat is coming from the Judeo-Christian culture, European culture. I think that is the complex, that is the self-confidence problem between the first century and last century. That is, for example, that is the Christianic miniature. Ṭabarī put the Sa'id ibn Jubayr riwayah. Sa'id ibn Jubayr, bottom, you know, they wrote stories. This person wrote the name of the 7 sleepers here. After that, they put in front of the door of the cave. That is the Christianic miniature. Sa'id ibn Jubayr is explaining this miniature as if, and Ṭabarī put it, his book, without hesitation. That is the very objective proof. Finally, some question and consideration. Was Ṭabarī selective in his tafsir? No. Ṭabarī took the photograph of the first 3 centuries of Islam. His primary goal was to collect all narrations he could reach. He could take what he could find. There is no exception. Did he refrain from mentioning any views? No. But why did he eliminate a few names in his tafsir book? Very easy. Muqatil bin Sulaiman, Suddi Saghir, and Kalbi, especially Muqatil bin Sulaiman. Why? He eliminated. Not because his opinions. His name is at that time was very notorious, and Ṭabarī didn't want his tafsir book to become controversial at once. That is very understandable. Yes. Ṭabarī's own statement opposite to the selectivity and censorship. I don't want to read, but that is very famous paragraph. Nozdeke, for example, praised so much. Ṭabarī's paragraph, like the paragraph of any academics now. Ṭabarī says, I collected and I am leaving the decision to the reader. I don't say all of these narrations are true. The question waiting for answer, I want to seize this opportunity. I am in front of the distinguished scholars. After preparing my doctoral thesis, I couldn't solve this problem, this question. And I ask to the very high level sources. For example, I talk to the Joseph Fanes and Claude Gilliot and in Arab country, many scholars. Qira'at, very important part in Tafsīr. And why do riwayah concerning qira'ats come generally without isnāds? Regardless, Ṭabarī, Ibn Abi Hatim, Abdul Razak, all narrations without isnād. From the other hand, isnād is one of the most important conditions for qira'ah to be accepted. Why? There is inconsistency with the true qira'at condition and the reality. Up till now, for the last 20 years, I couldn't solve this problem. If any idea, I appreciate, please. I want to seize this opportunity. Did you understand what I mean? Lastly, I want to say something. Ṭabarī was very keen on fond of freedom. Ṭabarī didn't select anything. From where? For example, according to the Ṭabarī, son of Ibrahim sacrificed is Ishaq, not Ismail. He accepted opposite against the mainstream Muslims. The other thing, ablution of the feet, for example, watching of the feet in ablution, for example, not necessary according to the Ṭabarī. That is the opposite also to the mainstream. More important than this, Ṭabarī didn't hesitate to take political risks. Concerning to the debate on the right to defend against a cruel ruler, Zalim, al-Hakim al-Zalim. Many scholars says we have a right to defend against cruel ruler, but not from us, from non-Muslims. But according to the Ṭabarī, there is no differentiation in the Qur'an from Muslim ruler or non-Muslim ruler. If he is cruel, we have to defend against him. That is, at that time was huge risk. He didn't hesitate to take any risk at this point. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hocam. You're on time. You're on time. Thank you very much.
Ich bin pünktlich.
Ja, Sie sind pünktlich, Hocam.
Dankeschön.
Wir danken. Thank you very much, Akif Hocam, for the interesting presentation. You raised plenty of problems concerning the authenticity, the accessibility of the Tafsīr reports, also the created hierarchy under the different mufassirun, the exegetes from the first 2 or 3 centuries of Islam.
Kurz ergänzen, dass man eigentlich auch aktuell in der Pädagogik vorhandene Kompetenzbegriffe und so weiter auch, ich sag mal, aus dem Koran extrahieren könnte. Aber ich hatte mir ein paar Beispiele aufgezählt, aber auf die verzichte ich aufgrund der Zeit. Aber eine Frage vielleicht an Herrn Koç, vielleicht auch erst in Deutsch, dann in türkischer Sprache. Sie haben gesagt, dass die Isnād und die auf verschiedene Richtler und so weiter, die Reisen auch verdeutlichen. Und in dem Sinne gibt es irgendwie eine Übersicht, wo welcher Unterricht, ich sag mal, gegeben wurde und die einzelnen Ravis, also Tradenten, welche Reisen sie gemacht haben. Gibt es so eine Arbeit? Das wäre interessant. Hocam, isnatlarda çeşitli yerlerdeki rihlelerden dolayı seyahat yapıldığında ve çeşitli halkalarda dersler alındığını söylediniz. Bu çeşitli ders halkalarıyla ilgili bir çalışma var mı? Yani o böyle bir harita çıkarılabilir mi o isnatlardan hareketle diye sormak istemiştim. Teşekkür ederim.
Vielen Dank für Ihren Vortrag. Ich interessiere mich für das Thema seit einigen Jahren, für Thema Pädagogik des Korans. Und ich habe auch sehr viel nach Literatur gesucht, habe ich nichts gefunden. Ich wollte nur ganz kurz eine Anmerkung dazu machen, zu sagen, der Prophet wird als Lehrer seiner Gemeinde bezeichnet. Das gibt es überall und auch im Koran, يُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. Und der Prophet als Lehrer, was ist sein Lehrstoff? Ich würde sagen, in erster Linie, sein Lehrstoff ist der Koran. Und jeder Lehrer hat eine Methode zu lehren. Und wenn man den Koran chronologisch, literaturwissenschaftlich und historisch lesen würde, genau wie Herr Özsoy gesagt hat, dass der Koran zu dieser Gemeinde gesprochen hat und diese Gemeinde erzogen hat tatsächlich. Da habe ich seit einigen Jahren daran gearbeitet und da sieht man tatsächlich eine rote Faden, eine Linie und eine sozusagen ein Prozess, ein Lehrprozess. Und deshalb wollte ich nur diese Anmerkung machen und sagen, dass ich dieses Projekt sehr wichtig finde für die islamische Theologie, weil was ist Islamunterricht? Ich würde sagen, wenn der Prophet Lehrer seiner Gemeinde gewesen ist, hat er den Koran gelehrt und im Islamunterricht soll der Koran unterrichtet werden, genauso wie er das unterrichtet hat. Vielen Dank, ist zu lang geworden.
Nein, wunderbar, perfekt. Misbah, go ahead, please.
Okay. First of all, thanks to Professor Akif KOÇ. This was a great and very interesting presentation. The question that you posed at the end, it was also quite interesting for me because I also thought about similar kind of things a while ago. And I want to add a few things to that. And if you perhaps found an answer, I would also be interesting to know. To me, it's not just about Tafsīr al-Ṭabarī that we do not find Isnād for qira'at. If we look at these qira'at in other books also, we normally call these 7 qira'at mutawatir, but we do not have mutawatir Isnād for them. Because mutawatir, we normally say that so many people that they all cannot lie. So at least there should be 10 or 20 people. But we have, for every qira'ah, we have just 1 or 2 people, and that's it. So they are not in itself. So in my opinion, there were different methodology, I could say it, or a bit different look at qira'at and hadith. For hadith, they normally wanted to know the isnad. For qira'at, they didn't really ask about isnad. It's just, for example, these 7 qira'at. Ibn Mujahid came and he collected the qira'at and everyone accepted. Because if someone refused to accept, they were punished. As we know about Ibn Maqsam, Ibn Shambuz. So because of this, no one really asked about isnad for qira'at as opposed to hadith, where isnad was important.
Thank you, Misbah.
I would like to know also the answer if you ever found out. I'd be interested as well.
Thank you, Misbah.
Thank you. Thanks to you as well.
Und wir haben noch 1-2 Minuten für Antworten und Rückmeldungen. Akif KOÇ, we have a couple of minutes for answers. I would say that Yashar Hocam starts first and then you can end the session. Hocam, Yashar Hocam? War da irgendwas für Sie? Bin ich durcheinander gekommen?
Nein, also für mich habe ich...
Es ging alles an Akif KOÇ, stimmt.
Ja, genau.
The floor is yours. I was a little bit confused. I thought that there was a remark on Yashar's podcast. It was only a remark, not a question. So go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for these questions. Is there any work covering Isnād scheme, Isnād tables from the perspective of academical approach? Came to my mind some works. For example, Recep Şentürk prepared doctoral thesis in United States of America. For a long, 20 years ago, I read, as well as I remember, his thesis Isnāds and the social movements in Muslim society, like this. The other, Halilur Rahman, for example, Pakistani PhD, he prepared doctoral thesis. And I heard, I didn't see, but in Iran, some projects collected all Isnād chains and with relationships between them. That is important. Also, Mahmud Shakir edited the Ṭabarī's Tafsīr, and in addition part, they gave a very, very valuable, sensitive knowledge. But in general, for example, Gregor Schoeller, he wrote a very valuable book. Firstly, he wrote 4 articles published in d.310. After that, collected as a book, very sensitive points were focused on in these books. As well as I remember, came to my mind, but this issue is directly related to the Hadith department, essentially. If you give me an email, but I am sure I can find more than this, and I will send you. The other question, according to the Qira'ah, as we know, for the Sahih Qira'ah, true Qira'ah, we have 3 conditions coming from our tradition. For example, Ibn Salah, Ulum al-Hadith, and Ibn Mujahid, Kitab al-Sab'a. 1, consistency. Qira'at must be consistency with Arabic language. The other one, true Qira'ah, must be complying with the Uthmanian style of writing. The last one is the most important one. That is the problematic issue. For example, one Qira'ah must go to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. You claim that there is no marfu sahih isnad change between the Qira'at Imam of Qira'ats and the Prophet Muhammad. No, there was, but theoretically. In Qira'at books, for example, Warsh, Nafi', for example, Duri, or Hamza, is talking about their Isnad change, reaching them to the Prophet Muhammad, theoretically. But we cannot find this theory in practical books, in Ṭabarī, in Ibn Abi Hatim. Why? I don't know. That is the problematic issue. Isnad is most important thing for Qira'ah, but in practice, we cannot meet with this type of conditions in Qira'ah. For example, Ṭabarī is so free. He is feeling himself very free, freedom. Believe me, more than us. He is very free. His evaluation about the Qira'ats, by far more than us. That is a freedom. I don't know reason. I am searching. Yes. Thank you,
Hocam, for this concluding remarks of our session. I see that there is a great need for further discussion, and we have a possibility to do that in our foyer with the Software Wonder. Und Carina wird jetzt erklären, wie wir diese Software benutzen werden, sodass wir wieder zusammenkommen können und noch weiter die Diskussion vertiefen können. Ich möchte mich an dieser Stelle für die zahlreichen Kommentare und Fragen und auch die Beiträge der beiden Referenten ganz herzlich bedanken. Das war sehr spannend. Ich hoffe, dass wir diese Spannung aufrechterhalten können, noch bis 19 Uhr im Foyer und weiter diskutieren können, und hoffe, Sie alle dann morgen wieder treffen zu können. Akif Hocam, çok teşekkür ederim. Hayırlı akşamlar diliyorum. Vielen Dank und auch ganz herzlichen Dank an alle. Ich übergebe das Wort an Carina.